Welcome to Cat and Jess Talk the Best, where we're going to be talking about IMDb's top 250 movies from April 12th, 2018. My name is Kat.
And I'm Jess.
And today we are talking about number 181, Into the Wild, which is an adventure biography drama film from 2007. This has an 8.1 on 537,104 votes. Our mystery line that we are revealing today is from Wild Tales episode. The line was, "I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way." And nobody guessed it correctly, but there were quite a few people that liked it. So I don't know if you guys were just lazy and didn't feel like guessing it, but...
Maybe.
It is from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
And it's Jessica Rabbit saying it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
As I have to say that because it's my character name, so.
So we've got 4 colors. Light blue, dark blue, green, and purple.
Green.
Alright. Ah, but the strawberries. That's where I had them. That one will be revealed in Gone Girl, so you've got a little while to take your guesses on that one. So the spoiler-free synopsis for our film this week. Christopher McCandless, son of wealthy parents, graduates from Emory University as a top student and athlete. However, instead of embarking on a prestigious and profitable career, he chooses to give his savings to charity, rid himself of his possessions, and set out on a journey to the Alaskan wilderness.
Yeah, that's about it. So this is directed by Sean Penn. Yeah, the Sean Penn. He's directed the movies like The Indian Runner, The Crossing Guard, and The Pledge. And this really stars just one person, but there's so many different other characters, so I just picked 2 others. So this stars Emile Hirsch, and then some other co-stars of his are Vince Vaughn and Catherine Keener.
Yep.
I would like to give an honorable mention to Jenna Malone. She did narrate quite a bit of this.
Yeah, and we did have her before. She was in Donnie Darko. She played Gretchen. That's it. It's I knew
I was thinking, I'm what movie was it? And then I had to think, oh, it was a while ago. It was with Donnie.
Yeah. So, for the ratings, 27.8% of users rated this at an 8 on IMDb. Metacritic has a 73. Rotten Tomatoes, it has an 83 on 196 critical reviews. 2 of the Fresh, Paul Burns. The film is about people trying to live good lives, and that is ultimately a serious and worthwhile project. Into the Wild is one of the best films of the year.
Okay. Whatever you say so.
And then Sukhdev Sandhu, Sean Penn's majestic travelogue about a young dropout on an idealistic quest in the great American outback is the best film the writer-director has ever made. Well, he's not really a dropout. He graduated, so...
It's he did graduate. We did see that.
Yeah. So, to Rotten, Amy Nicholson, Penn's main idea about going native is making eye contact with a deer. Okay. Then Joshua Starnes, crafting his meditation on the men who answer the call of the wild, Sean Penn's adaptation is heavy on mood and ambiance, but sadly lacking in depth, giving up on the wider comparisons to focus fully on McCandless, who may not be up to the scrutiny. I can see that.
Yeah, I can.
Especially having read so far what I've read of the book.
Oh. I was like, well, I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah. I haven't read much. So the consensus, with his sturdy cast and confident direction, Sean Penn has turned a complex work of nonfiction like Into the Wild into an accessible and poignant character study.
Okay.
So the budget for this film was $15 million. Opening weekend, it made $212,440. Domestically, it made $18,354,356. Internationally, it made $37,900,786 for a worldwide total of $56,255,142. Its top lifetime gross is number 3,675. So, the awards. It was nominated for 2 Oscars. Had 24 other wins and 102 other nominations. So we're just going to talk about a couple of them, because I don't want to list all those awards. But the Oscars that it was nominated for: Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role, Hal Holbrook. And then Best Achievement in Film Editing, Jay Cassidy, were the 2 that it was nominated for. Not quite sure what it got beat out by. And then the Golden Globes, it did win Best Original Song for the song Guaranteed. And then it was nominated for Best Original Score. Michael Brook, Kaki King, and Eddie Vedder all worked on this score together. But Eddie Vedder is the one that specifically did the song that won. And we'll talk a little bit more about the music later. So, initial thoughts.
I'll go first. I will contain myself. I'll try to.
Okay.
So, I went into this because I watched the trailer beforehand. And I was like, oh, it's another based on a true story thing. Okay. Then I had horror flashback to Hachi. And I was like, well, shit, I hope it's not like that. Because I detested Hachi. And, okay, I went into it. I was like, alright, I'll try to be open-minded. And it was 2.5 hours later, and I was bored. I was bored. I kept checking the time. I don't know how many times I checked it. I think, like, in the first half hour, I checked it, like, 5 times. Because I was bored. I did not like the main character at all. I honestly thought he was very pompous, very full of himself.
Yeah.
I mean, young college graduate, you think you're, invincible. And I think that's what he was thinking. I will say a few things I liked. I did like the old guy.
Yeah.
He got nominated for that. I think that was, like, one of my saving graces in this. And I will say some of the, like, cinematography, like, some of the nice, long, sweeping views that you got, especially of, like, in Alaska. Oh, they were beautiful. So, I'll give him credit for those. But other than that, I will not watch this again. Ever. It was too long. Too long. This could have been cut down an hour at least. But that's my opinion.
Yeah. Mine's pretty much the same. I think I did like a little bit more than you. But, for the most part, I was pretty bored. I understand, like, where the story's coming from and stuff, because, like, this actually did happen, and I don't think it's really supposed to be inspirational. Like, they don't want you to go die in the Alaskan wilderness. But I think it's supposed to just kind of show you what this guy decided to do. But then I also don't think that it's really one of those that you're supposed to be in love with this Christopher McCandless guy. Like, he's kind of an asshole. I think it's more of the people he meets along the way type thing that you're supposed to like. Because I did enjoy most of the people that he met.
Most?
Yes. There's one that I did not like, but that's because of the actress.
Yeah.
I liked most of the cinematography. The flashbacks I wasn't really a fan of.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But most of the stuff when he was just going along and it wasn't flashback time, I did like all of that, cinematography-wise. There were bits and pieces of the story that I thought were fun and entertaining. I did like Hal Holbrook's character.
Oh,
and just
he was
like
my favorite.
Him in general. And then Jan and Brady or Brody or whatever his name is. I liked them. I thought they were kind of entertaining. And then the crazy people that were on the river.
Oh, yeah.
That was, I don't know. Having read a little bit of the book, I haven't gotten to them. So I don't know if that part was specifically real or just added for like kind of a comedic relief, because this is a very serious tone in this film. But I mean, it's just kind of in the middle for me. It's just one of those. I probably won't watch it again. But once I found out it was a book, I did start reading the book. So if I'd known it was a book, I would have read it first. But I didn't find out till last night that it was a book. So I am only 30% through. But overall, it's just kind of in the middle for me.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Alright, that was your warning. If you haven't watched the film yet, then stop listening and come back after you've watched it. So it starts off at the beginning. You see a poem from Lord Byron. I think it said Lord Byron.
Byron?
Oh, did it?
I think so. Because that's a poet.
Okay. I only caught part of the letters because I was reading the poem, and then I looked down because I got bored because it just sat on the poem forever, and then I was like, oh, I should probably write down who this was by. And then it switched, so I only caught a few of the letters.
I didn't even write that down, but I had a friend in high school whose name was Brian, but we always made fun of him and called him Byron. Oh. So that's why I remember that.
I just know that I read the poem, and then it sat there too long. And so I was like, okay, now I'm done. And then I decided I should probably write the name down. So that's why I only caught a few of the letters. But then we go to, I guess, like this dream that his mom is having. And his mom is... Who plays his mom? Where's she at?
Isn't that Marcia?
Yeah, Marcia Gay Harden. I was like looking for her name. I found her. Yep, she plays the mom. And she's not really in it too much. I mean, mostly this is about Chris, who Emile Hirsch plays. And she, I guess, like, wakes up from a dream and she's super upset. And she's like, I heard him. He's really here. Blah, 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 blah. And then it jumps to a train. And we kind of see a train going along. And there's a letter that kind of pops up over. It seems like he's writing this letter to someone. And it pops up over the screen. And these big, ugly yellow letters.
Oh, yeah. I didn't like the yellow.
I didn't like the letter part. I mean, in the book so far, there's quite a few letters, but I didn't like how they did it. I feel like they could have done it a little differently. But we basically just see him kind of hitchhiking along, and this one guy drops him off and gives him some boots. And then we see him hiking through the woods and stuff, and sometimes he has quite a bit of clothes on, other times he doesn't have quite a bit of clothes on. It's like, it's hard to tell the timeline right at the beginning here, because they are jumping all around, but I think they're starting in Alaska, which is actually where he ended, because first he just goes all over the southwest, sorry.
Southwest, yeah.
He starts a little bit more east and then heads kind of north and then back down south and then west and then just kind of all over the place in the west, and then he goes up north. But in this part right at the beginning, he finds this bus type thing, and it ends up being called the Magic Bus. And it's up on a hill, and he's kind of making it his makeshift home, really.
Yeah.
And he's, like, carving stuff into the wood, like different sayings from books and stuff. And then we see kind of really our first flashback to his graduation and, like, his graduation celebration.
He's 2 years prior.
Yeah. And he's graduating college. And we also kind of hear him talking about his parents and about how he's like he'd been wanting to get away from his parents for a long time because they do bad things to children. And I'm just like, and his family really supported this movie. Why? Like, his parents fully supported this movie.
Oh, yeah, and he bitches about them the entire freaking movie. Jesus Christ.
But he's, like, talking about how he wishes he could go back to when they graduated college and were going to get married, and he wants to tell them not to do it because of all the terrible things they were going to do. But then he's like, I like living too much. And I'm like, oh, really? Then why are you just going to go die in the wilderness? Because that's what you're about to do.
I mean, pretty much.
I mean, you really have to know going into this movie, like, who this guy is. And the whole purpose of this movie is, like, it would not have happened if he hadn't died.
Pretty much.
So, going in, you know he dies.
And I'm like, that's not even a spoiler.
Yeah. Because otherwise this movie would not exist. The book would not exist. I mean, he would have written a book about his experience, and it would have sold, but it wouldn't have been turned into a movie because nobody would have cared because he didn't die.
Exactly.
And that's the truth. Like, something like this happens and the person lives, it doesn't matter because they're still alive. This is like, but somebody goes and does this and dies, and it just, like, blows it up. Makes it huge.
It's a cautionary tale in a sense.
Yeah.
Say, don't do this.
Yeah. So he's having his celebration lunch, and he's talking to his parents about how he has good enough grades to get into Harvard Law, and he has enough money to kind of pay for a little bit of that, pay for some of Harvard Law School. And then his parents are talking about how they want to get him a new car, and he just kind of throws his fit. Like, he doesn't want a new car.
He doesn't want things.
Yeah. But, so then we see him with a check for $24,000 to some charity. I think it's Oxfam or something like that.
Yeah, he put out all of his money. He had, was $24,500?
Something like that, yeah. And $24,000 of it he sent to a charity. And then the rest he got in cash to take with him. And then he heads out. And then
he cuts up all of his cards. He burns his social security card. He's pretty much just getting himself off the grid.
Yeah. And then we get what is called Chapter 1, My Own Birth. Which I thought that was kind of weird. The chapters in this. I was a little bit kind of confused by that.
Are they like that in the book?
Let me look at the chapter names. No, I don't think that's how it is, because there's 18 chapters. Here, hold on, let me look. So, 18 chapters. Whoops. Go back to where I was. First one, the Alaska interior, the Stampede Trail is chapter 2, Carthage. So no, it's not that way in the book.
So were these
Like,
chapter titles necessary at all?
I don't think so. I think it was more a directorial choice because all of the chapters in the book are kind of giving you an idea of where he is at in the country.
Yeah, I didn't like the chapter titles either.
Here in the movie, it's kind of like a growing up type story is what the director is going for, and I feel like that was unnecessary.
I agree. Completely. I'm like, if it was relating to the book, then okay, I would understand that. But since it's not, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah, I agree. But this first chapter is My Own Birth, and it's not really too long of a chapter. At least my notes indicate that it's not really compared to like chapter 2 and chapter 5, which my notes like super long for. But so he's heading west, and he's got his car right now, and then we see this sign that says like flood warning, flash flood area, all that, and then he like goes off road and is sleeping in his car or like in a tent near his car or something like that. And then of course it's storming, so there's a flash flood. So next morning he wakes up and decides to abandon his car. And my guess was that the flood messed up his car, because he just leaves it there, burns his money, and takes off.
I'm just thinking, I'm like, well, if it says flash flood area, why would you stay there in a low area and sleep in your car? Are you just asking for it?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering too. But then again, in the book, it gives a little bit more detail, because I did read this part in the book. The book's a little bit more easy to follow, I guess. I'll explain that when we get to the comparison. But he leaves and he's heading to Arizona. And then we kind of hear his sister talking a little bit about his parents having not heard from him. So they're going to go to Atlanta, which is where he was, in Atlanta, Georgia. And they're going to try and like find out where he's at and stuff. And they go there, and the guy who was like his landlord says, oh, he left 2 months ago.
It's like, yeah, he's been gone. And when they get back to their house, the sister has all of these letters that they had sent him.
Yeah.
And it says that Chris had the post guy hold these until August, so you can have time.
Yep, so he could have time to get away and escape. So he's been planning this for a while, not just as soon as he graduated he decided to do this. Like, he's been planning it. Then he ends up in like Northern California area, and he's walking around up there. And this is where he runs into Jan and Rainey, that's his name.
Yeah. I thought it was Randy at first, but then I saw it like later. I was like, oh, never mind, it's Rainey.
I kept hearing so many different names. Like, I heard Brainy, I heard Brandy, I heard Randy. I never heard Rainey the entire movie. I was like, what is this dude's name?
Same.
For a while, I just called him Hippie Dude, because I had no idea what his name was.
Well, I mean, that works too. They're both hippies.
Yeah. But I did kind of like their interactions. They just accepted him and gave him a ride and stuff, which is what you expect from people in a hippie van. They're going to give you a ride, of course. Which is, there's nothing wrong with that. That's their lifestyle. That's fine. I always feel like if I was ever lost, that would be the type of people I would try to flag down.
Oh yeah, I'd go for hippies too.
For sure. But then we also kind of get an explanation, a little bit more in detail about his parents, how they were violent towards each other and stuff. And his dad originally worked for NASA after graduating, but later he left to start a business with his wife. And then they talked to the kids about how they were going to have a divorce, but then the divorce never happened. And this is all the while we kind of get the idea that Rainey and Jan are having a little bit of issues with each other, kind of like marital type issues. But it seems like Chris helps them work it out. I don't know if that's because Jan does say something about Chris reminding her of someone. My guess was like her son or something.
Yeah, that's what I guessed too.
So I feel like he helped kind of mend their relationship. So he does good, even though he's an asshole.
Yeah, like quoting Thoreau at people? Really? What kind of douchebag does that? I wrote that down. I'm like, kind of a douchey move.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we get it. You graduated college. Good for you. As you can tell, I don't like him.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of his character. I will say Emile Hirsch played him pretty well, like to make me hate him. He did a pretty good job.
I mean, nothing against Emile.
Yeah, it's not the actor, it's the character, which is always good. Like if you know the actor and you do like them, but they're able to make you hate them, that's a good thing. So, so Jan is like walking down the beach while Chris and Rainey are talking, and then Chris kind of goes and hangs out with Jan.
They jump in the water and everything.
But this is like right after he said he was terrified of water his entire life. And I'm just like, what?
That's what I said too. I was like, really? So you say you're afraid of water, but then you jump in the water anyways.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then they go back and camp for the night. And then Chris leaves in the morning. And he left early enough that they didn't know he was leaving. He just left him like a little quote in the sand.
Because, that's a douchebag thing to do.
And then, but they did the night before invite him to go with them, told him where they were going, and that if he wanted to come with him, he could. They would love to have him. And I guess that was like his signal of he needs to leave. Because he left that next morning. And then that's when we get the moment where Jan is saying that he reminded her of someone.
And I thought, I'm like, okay, so maybe son that's no longer alive or son that doesn't talk to her anymore. Something like that. Then we get to chapter 2.
Yep, and that one is called Adolescence.
Walking around, hitchhiking, bathing in, those big old sprinklers and everything. And
yeah, the big ones on the farms.
I was like, that would work.
I've always wanted to run through those sprinklers like my entire life.
And I'm like, but sometimes it's not just water they're using with that.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I've never done it. Because I know that sometimes there's some stuff you probably don't want all over your body in those things.
Exactly. Like, but yeah. We know.
And then we hear from his sister, because his sister does some of the, like, a lot of the voiceovers, actually. Not some of them, but most of them.
Yeah.
And then he does some of the voiceovers.
It's mostly her, though.
Yeah. She is talking about how the Arizona police found his car and eventually figured out that it was his, and so their parents went to look for him in that area, but of course he's long gone at that point. And then it kind of jumps back to the bus in Alaska, and it says Magic Bus Week 3. So it jumps back and forth.
And sometimes it's very confusing.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, where are we at now?
Yeah, because this Magic Bus Week 3, we get very little to go on here. Like, all we see is he's kind of running low on food, and he is starting to punch holes in his belt because his pants are getting too small.
Yeah, his clothes are getting loose. I mean, he's losing weight, so... He eats a squirrel.
Yeah. And then it jumps back to him kind of hitchhiking all over. And he is in South Dakota 19 months before the bus.
Did it say September 1990?
I think so.
That's what I wrote down.
I just caught the South Dakota in 19 months before.
I just wrote dates and like month and date. That's all I did.
I was trying to catch the places he was because I thought he was just going to go to Alaska. I didn't know he was going to go like all over the friggin' country and then go to Alaska.
It's like, he kind of took a sweet-ass time going to Alaska.
He really did.
And I'm like, wasn't that your main goal? If that was your main goal, why don't you just go straight there?
Probably because when he left, it was getting too close to being winter, and he's like, that's a bad idea. Which is smart. Don't go to Alaska in the winter if you're going to live in the wild, because that's just going to make it even worse.
Well, I mean, yeah.
But so, this is where we get to see Vince Vaughn's character.
And Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah, he does play a small role in this part. Basically, what he does is he gives Chris all the pointers he needs about hunting.
Yeah.
So later on, when we see him hunting, he's using all the pointers that Zach Galifianakis gave him. But he is working with Vince Vaughn's character, who is Wayne Westerberg. And he's kind of working on a farm. He's like showing him how to use the equipment and stuff. And he's kind of working there for a while. The timeline in this is a little jumbly because it kind of goes back and forth a lot. But this whole entire thing takes place over about 2 years. From the point he graduated to the point he dies, it takes about 2 years.
Yeah.
But he's learning all this stuff. He's getting advice from Wayne. He's getting advice from Kevin, which is Zach Galifianakis' character. And then the cops show up, and this is like right after we hear about his parents like hiring, like getting the cops and the FBI and all that involved.
Get a nationwide search because they learned he had given all of his money to charity.
Yep. And so right after this, the cops show up where he's at, and I was like, how do they find him so fast? Like, he's been doing so good staying away from them. And then we discover that they aren't there for Chris, they're there for Wayne, because they didn't really emphasize this a lot. They did touch on it very slightly. But Wayne has been making and selling black boxes, which help people get free cable. Basically. Yeah.
I mean, whatever, man. That works. You're doing a service for people here.
Yeah. But they finally caught him, so Chris decides to leave because he was really only there because Vince was helping him out, giving him a job and stuff. And then right after that is when we learned that his dad was still married when him and his mom got together. When Chris's mom and dad got together, his dad was still married and had a brother. Well, yes. His dad had another son from his previous marriage. And so Chris and his sister were bastards, is what she says.
They're bastards, and their mom was a mistress.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a lie.
Yeah.
I'm like, but it's got nothing to do with you, really. It's your own freaking parents' fault.
Yeah. And the only thing that really does is kind of show you where his resentment comes from his parents. But, I mean, everyone has their own issues with family. That's not gonna make you go into the Alaskan wild and die. So.
It's like, exactly. And like, there's other things going on in that little brain of his.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion.
He gets his last paycheck from Wayne. And it was like $1,000 or something like that. But then I don't think he really uses it. Because then he finds this little kayak or canoe or whatever. I don't ever really remember how to tell the difference between them. I just know they both float. And you go down the river in them.
I think it's a kayak. I don't freaking know. I mean, and then, like, he buries these books. And I'm just thinking, like, why are you burying perfectly good books?
I'll explain that later.
Is it explained in the book?
Yes, it is
Okay,
explained.
thank you, because it bothered me as a book lover. It bothered me. I was like, what are you doing? Just donate them.
I was pretty upset with it, too. But then I felt like now having read a bit of the book, there's some stuff that they should have put in that they didn't. And then there's some stuff that they put in that I'm just like, that doesn't make sense with what I've read so far. But then, of course, I may not have even gotten to it yet. I don't know. So,
okay.
He decides he wants to paddle down the river, but he's, like, talking to the police officer in this town, and he's like, yeah, you need a permit. He's like, okay. And he's like, well, we can put you on a wait list for the permit. And so he looks at the wait list, and it's 12 years long. And I'm just like, what's the point?
Kinda.
Like, forget that. He's like, well, you can just go on a tour, a guided tour, but that's going to cost you $2,000. Like, what's the point of that either?
So he did what any logical person would do and just get himself a goddamn boat and just paddle down the river.
Yep. And this is where we run into the weird people on the riverbank, is what I called them.
They're from Copenhagen.
Yeah, they were very entertaining, I will say.
Yeah, the chick, I mean, she's just running around topless. I'm like, all right, you do you, boo.
Well, I mean, they're out there, like, he's probably the first person they've come across in a week.
Probably.
So, it makes sense to me. Like, if you're not really gonna come across anyone.
The first thing you do, like, when you meet somebody, I mean, these people had, like, no modesty, so.
I thought it was funny. The guy would, like, jokingly insult her, and then he'd go, but I like her. He did that, like, 6 times. He'd say something that was, like, slightly insulting, and then he'd go, but I like her. But I like her. I thought that was so funny. I was like, that is what made this moment of these people, is just this guy. And they were talking about how they kind of have been all over in this area, and that they wanted to go back to Vegas, that they were in Vegas and they wanted to go back to Vegas. Because they enjoyed Vegas so much.
Just wandering around like whatever.
Yep.
And they were telling him that you can go to Mexico just by following the river.
Yeah. So he's like, oh, cool. He's going to follow the river. But then the river patrol keeps coming. And, so he has to leave. And we kind of see him run in from the river patrol for a little bit. And then eventually he drags his kayak up the hill to get out of the way. We see he's gotten a ride somewhere near the Hoover Dam because his kayak's in the back of a car. Or in the back of a truck. And then it seems like at this point after that, he's at this payphone, and it seems like maybe he's going to call his parents. Like maybe he decided to call him, give him a heads up, be like, hey, I'm alive. If not his parents, then definitely his sister. But then he hears this old guy on the phone, my guess talking to his wife, like begging for her forgiveness, like he did something that he shouldn't have done. And he's begging for forgiveness, but his time's running out. He needs a quarter. So I thought this was kind of a good moment. Like one of the only good moments we really see from Chris the entire movie. He gives the old guy a quarter.
Yeah. I was like, okay, that's nice of you. Good.
Yeah. And then he leaves. And his sister's talking about how he used to wander off as a kid and stuff like that. Which, I guess it kind of gives a background for why he's wandering now, but I'm just like, that, I feel like that part could have been left out. That flashback could have been left out. I don't know if it's pertinent information. We've already got him wandering right now. Why do we need to know about when he was like 6 years old?
It's a pattern, I guess.
I guess, but I just felt like that could have been left out. Then we get another one of the letters to Wayne, where the yellow writing is over the screen. And he's telling Wayne that he wants to live like this for a while. He wants to just keep going and kind of living out on the land type thing for a while. And then we hear him talking about how he had lived in a cave for 36 days in Mexico, but his kayak got blown away in a windstorm. And at this point, he's talking to Border Patrol because he had made his way into Mexico illegally. He went under the dam when the floodgates were open. And then he was trying to get back across into California again. And he got caught. So they're talking to him. Then they let him go like super friggin' easy. Is what it seemed like. It seemed like he just kind of left without them really even caring. And I'm like, I don't think that's how the Border Patrol works. Like, yeah. I don't think they just question you and then they're like, never mind, you're good to go. Like, whatever.
No, I don't think that's what really happened. I mean, they probably were like, no ID, no entrance, bye-bye. It's probably what I thought of. And so he snuck his way through by jumping on a train.
Yep, he did get on a train and head out. And then he gets caught on the train. Is this where he gets caught? Or is it somewhere else?
Not yet.
I think it's
not yet.
Somewhere else.
It's
but he gets back to California and he's heading to a mission. You know, one of the places where homeless people go to get food and shelter for the evening. And he's talking to the lady at the desk and asking, like, where he can get an ID. And he would like a bed and stuff like that. And so he gets a bed and then he goes and puts his backpack in this little locker. I guess that's assigned with the bed. And then he goes out and kind of wanders the city for a little while. And then he comes back and decides that he doesn't want the bed and then he leaves.
I'm like, really? That was kind of a waste.
And I think kind of what they're trying to insinuate there is that he's been out on his own for so long that being in this big city like LA is, or even San Diego, wherever he happens to be, is just too much for him, so he needs to go back to living in the wild.
I guess.
Yeah. That's like the only thing I could think. I haven't gotten to that part where they fully explain that in the book. So I don't know. Chapter 3 here.
Manhood.
Yep. He's back on a train, and then this is where he gets attacked and like pulled off the train by security, the train security guy. And they tell him that if they ever catch him on this train again, that they are going to kill him. Or on any train, really, is what he says.
Yeah.
And then we see Magic Bus Week 7. He's out catching animals and stuff. And we see him making a list. And my guess is it's kind of like his journal, like big significant things that happen each day to him. Because it's numbered and then it's just like one thing on the line. And then the next number and one thing on the line. So it seems like he's just kind of journaling there. And we see him kind of building a dam and also building himself a little makeshift shower, which I thought was actually pretty good. I was like, that's not bad. That's a good job.
It was a decent shower. I'll give him credit there.
And then we hear about his problem with his parents again. And we're back to out of Alaska, back on the road when he's like in California, I think, again. But we're away from the magic bus. And he's working at a burger shop. And his boss is like, you need to wear socks.
Yeah, I will say it was a nice touch that in one of these scenes, he's reading Call of the Wild.
Yeah, I did like that.
That's a good book. It's a good book.
Yeah.
It's a nice touch there. I got that.
And then we also see his mom. She's like driving, and his sister voiceover says that pretty much any homeless person that she sees that even slightly resembles him, she automatically thinks it's him and is like trying to get the person to come home with her. I'm like, that's probably not the best idea.
It's pretty sad.
Yeah, it is. Because you see his parents throughout this, like, just breaking down, having a hard time, just not really understanding what's going on and stuff. Just trying to find him.
And he don't want to be found.
Yeah. And then after the mom part there, we see back in Alaska again.
Yeah.
And he is hunting.
Finds a moose.
Yep. And he gets it, he kills it, and he starts butchering it. And then he's like... We learned earlier from Kevin, Zach Galifianakis, said you have about an hour, especially if it's warm. You really don't have much time at all to butcher an animal and make sure that you've got the meat ready to go and put away in a safe place, because as soon as those flies get on it and start laying their eggs and stuff, you've lost it. That meat is gone. Like, you can't do anything with that.
And guess what happens?
Yep, he loses it. Because he took too long, really. And then we start seeing some wild animals. We see an eagle eating all this meat. We see some wolves eating this meat. And he's like sitting up on this rock right next to this butchered moose. And these animals just don't even care that he's there. Because it's starting to get to the point where he's not a threat. Like, he's losing mass all the time. Like, he's getting so skinny. He's losing all this weight. He's running really low on energy. And you could tell by the way, like, he was butchering the moose. That's why it took him so long, and that's why he lost it, really.
Yeah, and in his little journal thing, he wrote that it was one of the biggest tragedies of his life. And me already hating this person, I was like, what a drama queen.
Well, I mean, I can kind of understand that.
But of your life, really?
I feel like, yeah, because he's literally lost probably the last chance he has at getting anything to eat for a while. Because after this, we see him starting going through his little berries book and stuff. And he doesn't really find any other animals to eat. So I can see where you're coming from, but then I can also see where he's coming from, that this is like such a huge devastation. And now he's like lost everything.
I just feel like the moose was just too much for him.
Yeah, I feel like he should have prepared himself a little bit better to kill the moose. Like, he should have had the fire going already. He should have had some stuff ready to butcher this moose. And I realized he just kind of stumbled across it. But, I mean, you shoot it, then start your fire and all your preparation stuff, and then start butchering it.
Exactly.
Like, don't start butchering it and then try and do your fire. But I don't really know anything about hunting or butchering animals, so I could be completely wrong.
I think you're about
don't quote me on that.
I think you're right. That sounds right to me. It does.
The most I know about meat is going to the grocery store and getting some and then cooking it at home. So... But then we get to chapter 4, family. And this is back before, it's 4 months before the magic bus, and he finds the hippies, Rainey and Jan, again. And I think I was kind of curious at first, like, how he found them, but then I remembered that they did say kind of where they were going. And then also reading the book helped out to figure out how he found them.
I mean, that works. I mean, so I thought it was like a hippie commune.
That's what it is.
Okay, good. So I was right.
Yep. And this is, it's like he comes in and that night is performance night and he's talking to Jan and Rainey about his plans and stuff. And then we meet Tracy, who is played by a 16-year-old Kristen Stewart. So basically, Kristen Stewart playing Kristen Stewart.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because that's all she knows how to do is play herself. I feel like she's the same in every movie. She is. Like, you just see the same facial expressions. You see the same movements. Same tone of voice. She just doesn't do anything. She delivers the lines and that's it. She doesn't even deliver them well. She just says them. I'm not a fan.
I think we can figure that out.
But she has a crush on him, and we don't quite know it yet, but she's 16. So she's 16-year-old Kristen Stewart playing 16-year-old character Kristen Stewart. And they are kind of hanging out at this little hippie camp. And it seems longer, like this time period, to me, seemed longer than it actually was. He was really only there for like a week.
Yeah, I literally wrote down awkward flirting ensues.
Yeah.
And like they're walking together and they visit this place. And I've actually driven past this place before. It's a real location.
Yeah, everything is... They tried to film on location quite a bit.
I was like, I recognize that. Yeah. I do. I recognized it. I was like, oh, yay, something I know. All right. That helped bring me back in a little bit.
Yeah, I was looking through all the places that they did filming, and they did 53 different locations.
Jesus Christ.
Because a lot of it they were trying to film on location. They were trying to really get that feeling of being all over the country without just doing it in one location, which is more expensive.
Yeah.
But also, I think it's better for cinematography because you get some amazing views.
That's probably where all their budget went.
Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing. 53 locations. That is crazy amount.
Yeah. That is a lot. But we kind of get some background into Jan. And she's talking about... This is where we really learn about her son. And it was her son that Chris reminded her of.
It says that she hadn't talked to him in like 2 years.
But it's right around Christmas time here. And he's talking to Rainey and talking about love and stuff. And talking about how he needs to go talk to Tracy. And then Tracy decides that she wants Chris. And Chris is like, no, you're 16. Well, first he's like, well, how old are you? And then she's like, 18. And he doesn't believe her, so she says, 17. He still doesn't believe her, so she says, okay, fine, I'm 16.
It's like, yeah, I know. He's like in his like early 20s, and she's like 16.
He's 23 at this point.
Yeah, that's not a good idea. That's like 7 years difference.
Yeah. Which doesn't matter if you're over 18, but she's 16 and he's 23, so that's a pretty big deal.
That is a federal crime there, people.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's some jail time. But of course he's already been floating down the river without a permit. He's already abandoned his car. He's already been across the border 2 times. He's already been train jumping. So he's got a lot of past crimes that he could be wanted for, but he's not going to add this one to his list.
Because that would be the kicker.
He decides instead that he's going to just do a performance with her. He's going to sing a song with her. Which I was like, oh, that's kind of a good compromise. That's a way to not get you in trouble.
It works. It worked.
Yep. But so then the next day, he's heading out. He's gonna start up on his Alaska trip. And so Jan is gonna take him. It doesn't specifically say where, but she takes him on his way a little bit.
Takes him to the post office because he's waiting for a letter.
Yeah, because he's waiting for that last paycheck from the burger place that he had been working. And then he's going to head on. And then she does give him a Christmas present. And it's a little beanie that she sewed for him. Or not sewed, but crocheted, I guess.
It's an orange one.
Yep. Which we have seen previously in the movie. He did use it as like kind of a marker across the river from the magic bus.
So
to help him figure out where he crossed originally.
To help him get back if he needed to.
Yep. And then we jump to Magic Bus, and it says week 9. She's officially been out there for quite a while. A little bit over 2 months. That's a long time to survive in the wild. So congratulations to that.
I mean, yeah, that's good so far.
Yeah. But he's heading out. He's got his stuff. He's leaving the bus. And he comes across the river where he had crossed before because it focuses over on the orange beanie. Except it's not very orange anymore.
It's all beat up.
Yeah, because it's been out there for 9 weeks. And the river is like so strong from all the snow melt because it's officially spring. So all the snow melt is coming through, just making that river so huge from when like the first time he went across it, he was actually able to cross. But then it kind of looks like he's about to go into the river because like he starts walking forward and then he falls in and is like freaking out trying to get out. I'm like, well, what is the point of going forward then? Like, why'd you walk forward?
And I'm like, it didn't say earlier you were afraid of water?
Yeah.
I'm like, God, what a dumbass.
But he manages to get out, and then he gets back to the bus. So I don't know. I think maybe he was planning on going if he could. Like, maybe he decided he was done, but the river was way too high, and he couldn't swim it because it's rushing. So he decided to go back to the bus and stick it out for a little while, is my guess.
Or he just kind of just trapped there.
Yeah. And then chapter 5, which is the last, it is Getting of Wisdom.
Yeah, and this is the old guy.
Yep. And the old man gives him a ride to his encampment. He asks him for a ride to his little camp. And the old man's like, okay, well, where are you camping at? And he's like, up near, oh my God, Hot Springs. And this old man, he's like, well, I've never heard of that place. You're going to have to direct me where to go. So he's directing him and stuff, and he gets up there, and it's a naked farm, pretty much.
Nudist camp.
And it's like a hot springs, and they're all out there just enjoying themselves. Which, I mean, sure, whatever, have fun. But he's not actually camping there. He's up a little ways up the trail, and he has a little camp there. And the old man's talking to him. Oh, old man's name is Ron Franz. But he's talking to him and stuff, like questioning him, why is he out here? Why isn't he like going to school and all that? And they spend quite a bit of time together. Not quite sure how long. My guess is like a week or 2.
Yeah, it's been a while together. And Ron tells Chris about, like, you know, his family, how he used to have, like, a wife and son, but then a drunk driver hit him and killed him in their car.
Yeah, while he was stationed in Okinawa.
Yeah.
So, he wasn't even home.
Yeah.
And now he is a leather engraver, and he really doesn't do much of anything. He just does that. And Chris is kind of like trying to encourage him to go out in the world and actually experience it. And they have this interesting relationship, kind of like they've known each other for a long time without really having known each other for a long time, because they both give each other a hard time. Like, Chris is encouraging him to come climb up this mountain so he can see the view and stuff. And then Ron is just like, you need to go to college. You need to actually make something of your life. And then Chris is like, well, I have gone to college. I've got a degree. I'm not doing this by accident. Like, I actually want to do this. This is my life choice. And that kind of shocks Ron a little bit. And Ron does teach Chris how to do some of the leather working.
It's how Chris made his belt.
Yep, we get to see his journey on his belt. He carves or leather works his journey into his belt. And then it kind of jumps back to Alaska for just a couple of minutes. And Chris is like out trying to hunt, but he can't find any animals, so he's freaking out and he's getting mad. So then now he is trying to look for edible plants because he's got a little book that tells him which plants are edible and stuff. And so he gets some and he collects them and he's eating them. And then he falls asleep and he wakes up and he feels like something's completely wrong. And he's like looking through his book and he discovers that he ate a poisonous plant that if it goes untreated,
kills him. I'm like, it's gonna kill him.
Yeah. And then we do come across a bear, or he does, and it doesn't do anything. Like, it just walks past him because that bear's like, you're not gonna do anything to me, and you're not worth my time because there ain't any meat on those bones. So bye.
Pretty much.
That's what that bear was thinking, for sure.
It's like, that's nothing. You're a twig.
Yeah. Because we do see, like, how much weight he has lost now. And it's crazy. Like, he's so skinny. Then it jumps back to him and Ron before he heads up to Alaska. And he's letting Ron know... Well, actually, he's, like, packing up, getting ready to go. And Ron heard him, so he knew he was leaving. So he's like... I've got some stuff here for you, which is like a machete, some knives, a fishing pole, some stuff to kind of survive out in the wilderness. Which some of it I'm guessing he got from the war. Like the machete. Pretty sure he got that from the war.
Maybe.
And he says that he's going to drive him 100 miles. He said he would drive him further, but he has to get back to church.
It's got mass at 8.
Yep. But so they leave, and as, like, they're driving along and stuff, and then as Ron is gonna drop him off and let him out to head up to Alaska, before he does, he tells him, like, both of my parents were only children, I'm an only child, my only child is dead, can I adopt you? Can you be, like, my grandson? And Chris just kind of disregards it, and I was like, well, we'll talk about it when I get back.
There's no coming back.
Yeah, and I feel like that was so devastating for Ron. Like, it was so hard, because I feel like Chris really reminded him of his son a lot. We don't learn in the movie how young or old his son was, but in the book it tells you his son had just graduated college or was about to just graduate college. So he's almost exactly the same age as Chris is now when he died.
Well, that makes more sense. Why did they just say that in the damn movie? It wasn't taking very long.
Yeah. But I will say that Hal Holbrook really delivered this character. I enjoyed this character so much.
Beautiful.
Yeah. But Chris leaves, and then it's kind of... It doesn't go to Alaska again. It's just kind of flashing to all the people that Chris has met and, like, how their lives are now and stuff like that. And then we also see his dad. He's, like, breaking down crying in the middle of the road.
So literally sits in the middle of the street. I'm like, that's a defeated man right there.
Yeah. Definitely. Because I think he's accepted the fact that nothing's gonna, like, he's never gonna find his son unless his son wants to be found and comes back. And then we jump back to Alaska again, and we see Chris is dying.
And I have to note this. His teeth looked fantastic.
Then we get like a what if situation, like what if he had come home instead of dying here in the wilderness. And then he's dead.
Well, he had zipped himself up.
Yeah.
In his sleeping bag and his coat, and he just pretty much breathes his last breath and dies.
Yeah, but he's dead. And then we get a picture of the real guy. Like the actual Chris McCandless. And then we get he was born February 12th, 1968, and he died estimated August 18th, 1992, which I thought was kind of weird because that's the day after Sean was born. It's like, that's weird.
Just a little.
But he was found 2 weeks later by moose hunters, which tells me he was not that far from civilization.
Not really.
And when we get to trivia, I do have trivia about that, about how far he actually was.
Yeah. Good.
But yeah, that's pretty much it.
It does say that his sister flew back with his ashes and everything in her backpack, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it does say that.
And there's that.
Yeah.
2.5 hours later.
So the music, we did talk about how it was nominated and won a Golden Globe. It was nominated for 2, only won 1 of them. Michael Brook, Kaki King, and Eddie Vedder. They all worked on this together. Michael Brook is known for Brooklyn, The Vow, and The Fighter. So we will see him a little bit later because I think The Fighter is on our list. I think. I'm probably wrong. And then Kaki King is known for August Rush, 3 People I've Never Heard Of, and something in French. That translates to One Woman House Band. And then Eddie Vedder, who won the Golden Globe, is known for Big Fish.
Nice.
Walk Hard, the Dewey Cohn story, and Singles.
I was like, Big Fish. Excellent.
Yeah, so they've all got some good stuff under their belt. They've all been working on stuff for a while. There were some times when I wasn't a fan of the music, but then there was also some times that I really did enjoy the music. It's just kind of... It was more the stuff in the background that I really enjoyed. But then the stuff that actually was like kind of in the foreground and had words, and I felt like some of that was a little bit out of place, at least for me.
I would agree with you. I would.
So comparison. Like I said, I've only read about 30% of the book. It's super easy to know that this guy died. Because they wouldn't have made this story. We made that clear. They wouldn't have made this movie. They wouldn't have made this book without him having died. His death was the inspiration for all of it. It starts out, like, right at the beginning, telling you he died. You immediately learn he died. And the way it's written is more kind of on the outside looking in instead of specifically following Chris. It's really the author, he goes and actually talks to all these people that Chris met along the way. And we get their view of Chris and how he, like, was portrayed, or how he, like, portrayed himself to them and stuff like that. I'm trying to think of anything else different. One of the major things that I did just read this morning was Ron Franz. After he found out that his family died while he was in Okinawa, he did adopt quite a few Japanese children. And he even paid for a few of them to come to America to get college educations. So Chris wasn't the first person he tried to adopt.
Okay.
But I do feel like, knowing from the book that Chris was around the same age that his son was when his son died, makes it even more understandable as to why Ron connected so much with Chris and felt like he needed to help Chris and stuff like that. But so far, I do like the book. It's decent. It's not amazing, but it's not one of those that I want to put down. Like, it's not one I want to just stop reading. I'm gonna finish it. It's actually interesting, and I feel like it tells the story in a little bit more of an entertaining way. But I think it's just because it comes like from a more realistic standpoint, whereas the movie seems very cinematic to me.
Oh, yeah.
So, trivia. I said I had one. Oh, yeah. His civilization. He was only like 20, 30 miles from civilization in that bus he was in.
Oh. That's not
he
too
was
far.
Not very far at all. And then, the other one I had, from the book, it does explain kind of at the beginning, the place where the bus was is actually a trail in Alaska, kind of like the Pacific Coast Trail, you know, the one that inspired that book and movie Wild.
Okay.
This one's called the Stampede Trail, is where he kind of spent a lot of his time, and this is where the bus is. And the beginning of the Stampede Trail, they put, I think, 3 or 4 of these buses out for people that were going on the trails to have shelter. But then throughout the years, the rest of the remaining trail, because it crossed the river and they never built bridges for it, they just kind of, the trail fell into disrepair and nobody did anything with it. And then it finally just, only part of the trail was there anymore. And so the buses were still there. And that's how he found one, is because it was along the trail and he just happened to stumble across it when he crossed the river. So it wasn't there by accident, like it was specifically put there. And then the other thing about the buses that I have is this one in the movie is a replica of the actual buses that they have out on the trail.
Yeah.
And people do now go to these buses pretty often to kind of, I don't know really if it's pay their respects to Chris or just kind of experience and see where he lived and how he died kind of type thing. Just one of those, like, seen the movie, read the book, now you want to see the actual place that inspired it type thing.
I was like, speaking of that, people, like you said, people did go there and some people died trying to get there.
Yeah.
And like people drowned. People just got lost in the mountains. I'm like, really? Like, it's just, it's a dangerous, like, that river is dangerous.
Yeah. And it's partially because they don't take care of that trail anymore. So, and because they had never built the bridges across the trail, they just kind of left it and did whatever they wanted. They're like, yeah, whatever. Because it used to be a pretty, according to the book, it used to be like a very well-traveled trail, and they were going to keep it repaired and put these bridges across the river so that people could get across when the river was high and stuff like that, but then they just never did.
Yeah.
Thing I thought was kind of a major thing, at least difference from the book to movie. Just kind of interchangeably put this in with the trivia, because the book tells more about like the real life story, so that's part of the trivia. His father actually had 6 kids with his other wife. Not one. There were 6 total from his other wife, all while he was with Chris and Carney's mom, or Kareen.
I'm like, so the dad's just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me.
I think that's it.
I would like to say that the official cause of death, it was a toxic amino acid.
Yeah.
In the plants.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say that. So that everybody knows.
And they couldn't, like, actually pinpoint his cause of death because he was out in the wilderness. Or not cause of death, but time of death.
Yes.
They just had to guesstimate it.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can only estimate so much if you're like not right there. I do have some you know how skinny Emile got? He really did lose that weight.
Yeah.
40 pounds of it.
Yeah.
40
I think the
pounds.
real guy, it says in the book, he got down to like 70-something pounds. Is how much he weighed right before he died or something like that.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, I remember something I was going to say that they explained in the book, but not in the movie.
Go ahead.
So him burying stuff, like the
Yes,
books he
thank
buried,
you.
and also the money, like he did bury money too. He buried that stuff, and then later when he came back to that city or place, he got it back. Which they never explained in the movie.
No.
But in the book, he goes back to those places. Because he goes to a few places a couple of times. Like, he goes to Wayne a few times. He goes and sees Jan and Rainey a few times. And when he buries something, he's burying it because, like, he doesn't want to be in that big city with those specific things because he doesn't want them stolen. Like, there's time when he's, like, in LA, he goes and he has some money from having worked in South Dakota or whatever, and he goes outside the city and he buries some stuff, and then once he's done in the city, he goes and unburies it and takes it with him. So then they showed him burying it, but then they never showed him unburying it or anything like that.
Okay.
Because I remember you had a question about that.
I did, because I was irritated about it.
Yeah. They explain it in the book, but not in the movie. They just show him burying stuff, and I'm like, what's the point? The border, when he crossed the border, when he was coming back across, he actually never cut up his ID. He had his ID. He just didn't always have it on him. That was one of the things that he buried. And he did have an ID on him when he came back across, but they put him in jail because he crossed illegally the first time. So he was in jail for a couple of days because his parents had sent a private investigator out. I don't remember if they sent the private investigator out after he was caught there, because they did hear that he had been caught at Border Patrol.
Oh.
And the burger place that he worked at was McDonald's. Not just a random burger shop.
I think in the movie it said, like, Burger King or something.
I don't remember seeing the sign. I just know it was a burger shop. But in, like, real life, he actually worked at a McDonald's. And they did give him problems about his socks, because he hated wearing socks. And they, like, forced him to wear socks. And it was funny, because they actually, like, the author actually went and questioned his bosses at that McDonald's. And they're like, the first thing he did every day when he got off was take his socks off. I was like, okay, that's weird, but alright. I think that's all I've gotten to so far. So the kayak, you know how in the movie it said it blew away?
Yeah.
He got tired of dragging it around because the canals and stuff in Mexico just kind of sporadically go wherever and don't really lead anywhere. He was trying to drag it to the ocean, and he did get there, but then he got caught in another canal, and so then he decided he didn't want the kayak anymore, so he just got rid of it. It didn't actually blow away.
Oh.
Yep, he just decided he didn't want it anymore. Kind of like his car. It's the same thing. Because his car, when the police found it, it actually worked. But when Chris abandoned it, he had just given up trying to get it to start because the battery was dead from being in the flood. But then it having been sitting there for a few months, the police were able to get it to work because the battery just kind of had a little bit of power left in it and it was dried out, so it actually worked. And funny thing about the car, actually, the police station that found it actually used it to catch drug dealers. Because since it was an old raggedy car, they're like, this is perfect for undercover work. And they used it to catch quite a few drug dealers.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I just got 2 more to add.
Okay. Sorry.
Zach Galifianakis, he improvised all of his lines.
Oh, wow.
He had no lines in the actual script, so they just said, just improvise. He's like, will do. Because
Nice.
it's Zach, he can do that.
Yeah.
And one last one. So, the watch he was wearing in the movie,
Yeah.
that was really Chris's.
Oh, okay. Sean Penn, he's the director and he wrote the screenplay. He heard about this story, and then as soon as the book came out, he bought the book. As soon as he finished the book, he bought the rights for the movie. And then he talked to the family, Chris's family, but they told him no, they couldn't do it yet. Like, they wouldn't support him in doing it. So he had to wait 10 years, just a little over 10 years before he was allowed to actually make this movie. So where it has been on the list before, in 2010 it was number 145, 2012 it was number 161, 2014 it was number 158, 2016 it was number 176, 2018 it was number 184, and as of today when we are recording, it is number 202.
So it's slipping?
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
But I feel like it's a lot of the same reason like we've previously talked about, just so many movies coming out in the last 10 years that are killing it and just people are enjoying it so much. So I feel like that's part of it. So previously, number 181, the 2010 list, The Secrets in Their Eyes from 2009. The 2012 list, Amoris Perros from 2000. The 2014 list, The Princess Bride from 1987. The 2016 list, There Will Be Blood from 2007. 2018, Wild Tales from 2014. And then as of today when we are recording, Tokyo Story, which I believe is coming up pretty soon for us. In probably a couple months. Yeah, maybe about
It's
2 months from now.
10 movies
It's
away.
coming up. So yeah, just a little bit over 2 months for us. And that is from 1953. So some of our podcast trivia. This is the second movie that we've had from 2007. The first one was The Bourne Ultimatum. This is kind of higher up on our votes, on the number of votes it's had. It is between a movie that had about 10,000 less than it, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Movie that had about 10,000 more than it was Logan. So it's pretty up there with the amount of people that have seen this movie. This is the only movie so far that's been at a 73% on Rotten Tomatoes. And this is the 8th movie that's had a 77% on Metacritic. It's along with Paper Moon, The Princess Bride, Before Sunrise, Logan, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, Wild Tales, and Life of Brian.
I like half of those movies.
As I say, it's with some good company, but then some other company that's not quite as good.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite line? You got a few?
I got two.
Okay.
I'm not Superman, I'm Supertramp.
And he makes up his name.
But when you forgive, you love.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't need money. Money makes people cautious. But then he's constantly going out and getting jobs and making money, and then other people are feeding him and stuff, and I'm like, see, you do need money. You just don't want to need money. Come, join us. We have hot dogs. I thought that was so funny.
It's such a random line. I love it.
It is. It was so funny. I have two more. I'm living like this by choice. In the dirt. That's when he's talking to Ron. And then my last one, when he's yelling in Alaska. Where the fuck are the animals now? I'm hungry. He's just yelling that out.
That did make me giggle. I will admit that.
Yeah, that part was kind of funny. But I was also like, that's actually kind of sad, too, because he's, like, starving to death. And he really needs some animals to come out so he can eat. What was your second one again?
But when you forgive, you love.
Okay, we'll go with that one.
Okay.
I liked that one. So what is your rating?
I'm giving this a 3.
Okay.
It's a 3. Like I said earlier. A lot of what I said earlier. It hasn't changed much.
Yeah.
Again, what really saved it for me was, I did like the bit parts from people like Vince Vaughn, Zach. Loved Hal Holbrook's part.
Yeah.
I mean, he definitely earned that nomination for sure. Yeah, there's some really nice cinematography. It's about it for me with that. That's why it's not very high. Like I said, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like this based on true story things. But so far, it's like a 0 for 2 for me. This one, it just like, it's directly like saying like it's taken from a real thing. Like, it just reminds me too much of Hachi. And I couldn't stand Hachi. So, yeah, and it honestly was me. I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I could summarize this movie in like a few sentences. You know? Yeah. Dumbass college graduate decides to go to Alaska to be part of the wild, has no training, just goes, whatever, does the hell he wants, ends up in Alaska, then dies.
Sure.
That's pretty much it. So I just felt like it was just too long also.
Yeah, it was pretty long.
2.5 hours is way too long for this movie. Like, some things could have been way cut out. Some things were dragged on. So, yeah. So it's a 3. I didn't hate it as much as Hachi. I didn't. But I will not watch this again. No.
For me, this one is a 5. Like I said earlier, it's just kind of in the middle. There was some things that I did like. The cinematography was great. Most of the acting was really great. Especially because, Emile Hirsch made me hate him as a character. And I was like, can we just be done? When actually most of the things I've seen him in, he's actually been entertaining and fun. And I'm not saying he's the best actor in the world, but he is decent. Like, he does a good job most of the time. There have been a couple of things that I hated him in. But this one, he, really sells his character and makes you hate his character. So I felt like he did a great job acting.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't stand him.
I really liked Hal Holbrook a lot. He did a great job. I did feel like it was a little bit long. And I feel like maybe it's just the way the movie was portrayed, like the way the story was portrayed, that I wasn't a big fan of. Because reading the book and the way it's portrayed there, I am actually enjoying it a little bit more. Like, even though I already know everything that happens for the most part, I'm just enjoying it a little bit more. And I think it's just the way that is portrayed. I feel like they did some stuff in the movie just for cinematic effect. And there's not usually a problem with that. Like, most of the time that's fine. Just sometimes, especially with the true story things, if you try to get too cinematic with something, it kind of takes away from it a little bit. But for me, it's just kind of right there in the middle. So, it's a 5. So our next film is Blade Runner 2049 from 2017. And this does have a book, but the book is really more for the original Blade Runner, so we won't do any comparison for Blade Runner 2049 to the originals, like any of the other book or the original Blade Runner movie. We won't do any of that comparison. We're going to save it for when we get to Blade Runner. But that will be our first episode of the new year.
Yeah, it will be.
It'll be out January 4th. Because next week is our holiday event, which is, for me, Babes in Toyland from 1986 and Krampus from 2015.
And mine are Santa Claus is Coming to Town from 1970 and The Nightmare Before Christmas from 1993.
Yep. So check that out. Those will be released all week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those will be released to kind of celebrate more than just the Christmas holiday, because all in there we've got Kwanzaa and Hanukkah and Christmas, all of that happening within a few days of each other. So just kind of celebrate them all. So we are offering premium, and we do have a patron program. For premium, you just go to our website. For Patreon, the link is in the show notes. For $1 a month, you will get unedited episodes, early release episodes, when I have the ability and time to do that, and a bonus episode every month. For $5 a month, you will get all of that. Plus, you will be able to join us for a movie of your choice every 50 movies. There will be polls and voting for the monthly special episodes, and then a patron/premium only chat forum where you can go and chat with other patrons about your thoughts on the movies, what you agree or disagree with us on. And then for $10 a month, we will have live stream Q&As once a month. And we haven't quite decided what those Q&As will be on. Once we get some $10 a month patrons or premium members, we will decide the first one. Also, once we figure out how to do it. But we've got time. So, also you'll be able to join us for a movie of your choice every 25 movies, or you can pick an event that is not the Harry Potter event to join us every event. And plus you'll be able to get everything from the previous tiers. Our special monthly episode for this month is the Golden Globe predictions, which will be out on New Year's Eve. Because the Golden Globes, as of this moment, the nominees have been announced. So now we've just got to discuss it and see what we think. If you could leave us some ratings and reviews. Ratings help us get some listeners, help us be able to be found by new people. And reviews help us to know what you guys like, what you don't like, what we can improve upon. So if you could let us know, that'd be great. And then you can talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or you can email us. All of the links are in the show notes. And our music is by Audio Binger. You can find him on Facebook, YouTube, and his website, audiobinger.net. So thank you all so much for listening. We will catch you in just a few days with the first episode of our holiday event. Bye!
Bye!